Okay, time to make this first video of mine. I'll begin with a simple truth. We are stuck in a loop of reaction, and we must move into a loop of reflection. Sounds clean, sounds perfect even, sounds like a truth, but actually there's a trap in this saying, and I will unravel this for you. This specific trap cost me a lot of suffering and eventually a lot of wisdom that I will try to communicate here in this video. So, intuitively, in my early 20s, I understood that, okay, I am stuck in a loop of reaction. What to do about it? What is the opposite of reaction? Well, I thought that was reflection. But turns out that reflection is actually a reaction. It's just a mental reaction. So, I went down the path of reflection. I thought that thinking would end the loop of reaction when thinking was a reaction. It led me to this overconsumption of information. And before we begin talking about that, let's understand where I came from. I was, like others, into shopping, eating food, traveling, consuming experiences, right? I got tired of that and I thought, hey, I must stop being a slave to the matrix, whatever. I must stop this loop of reaction. So I went and I started consuming information to reflect. And it's funny, I call this trap truth around the corner. Truth around the corner. Thinking that, hey, if I just consume this piece of information, or figure this out, create this world model, I will kind of figure it out. And so I started creating these mental maps of reality, trying to take a little bit of maybe personality types, spiral dynamics, history, religion, mythology, and try to create this big model that would help me navigate life. But what I didn't understand is that the map, doesn't matter how complex the map is, can never become reality. So there's this underlying flaw that the rationals, the intellectuals, they miss, where they build this air castle of intellectualism to understand reality. They don't understand, or they miss, that the base where we build our castle was flawed. And this is a bit upsetting for the rational mind, or it is very upsetting for the rational mind to understand that, oh, I've been building this building on top of this unsteady foundation. And it doesn't matter how much you will try to perfect this building, it is built on this flawed ground. And this is where a lot of this suffering is coming from. This is where many of the smart philosophers today are unhappy, because they are trying to map reality in the mind, which takes us away from actually experiencing reality as it is. So, let's say I'm a psychologist, right? Stuck in the mind, a psychologist. They have their diagnoses, they have their frameworks, they have their ways of working, analyzing, whatever. The patient comes in, and now the psychologist starts using their frameworks. And let's say this is an edge case patient, right? Or just a regular patient. They will try to squeeze this patient into the mental frameworks. It's their job. It's how they make money. This tool of theirs is a good tool. It's what brought them success. It's what probably will bring them more success money-wise. So they put all of their skill points, all of their resources into this tool that will try to squeeze reality into it instead of looking at reality for what it is. So let's say this edge case patient comes in, it's a complex case, and now the model doesn't fit. So they need to do some more research to kind of fit this patient into this model, or they need to change, add an extra room, remove a room, so now it fits reality. This is not a happy process because these people, the intellectuals mapping reality in the mind, they need to constantly update their worldview, consume more, become heavier in order to kind of meet reality. So instead of actually looking at reality, they just change their worldview a little bit. And it is coming from this unshaky foundation. So, loop of reaction, intuitively understood. The trap was to go into a loop of reflection. When actually, all that is needed to stop this loop of reaction is just observation. Actually observing the patient when it comes in and not trying to squeeze the models. Because this has been now, after the education system, after 10 years of working in the industry, now this is our default way of meeting the world, just reacting. It's a very brain-heavy way of being. But this is not just a professional issue. It's also something that is core to how we live our lives. If we are unhappy, thinking about why we are unhappy is not going to make us unhappy or happier. We actually need to reverse what is making us unhappy, which is many cases the mind. It is this mind activity, this tool that we have kind of let loose. It is now becoming our tormentor. And we don't know how to stop this. We don't know how to reverse this loop of reaction. But the key is simple. And we don't like simple. We want the key to be complex. We want the key to fit our paradigm of this increasing web of complexity, building this castle, making more rooms, making it grander, this all encapsulating philosophy of the world. It needs to be complex. We don't like simplicity. So I personally had to suffer through this complexity to be done with it, to come to the point where I would accept something simple. Accept that the foundation where I built my home was flawed. Actually, the most rational thing is to not listen to the mind that we don't have control over. That is rational. So it comes down to observing. And this is actually what meditation is supposed to teach us. It's supposed to provide this space where the behavior patterns that we have been feeding, our mind behavior patterns and physical behavior patterns that start with the mind, we can begin to understand how they are formed, how they are fed, how they are developed and made stronger over time. All you intellectuals, you understand that energy doesn't appear out of nowhere. When this patient comes in, my default state is to use my mental models and to squeeze this patient into the mental models, right? That's the default. That is where my energy have been going, and it is taking me away from reality. It is tangling. It is creating this process of tangling. So we must begin to understand how are these behavior patterns created. And this is where me explaining this on a video becomes tricky, because you are here looking for intellectual understanding when this intellectual understanding is in the framework. You are trying to take this information into your sandcastle when I'm saying that this is not intellectual understanding that can solve the problem of thinking and having the tool of thinking been let loose. So that's the tricky. We can't stop the loop of reaction by thinking. We must begin to observe our mind and understand that our mind is not just our brain. So an example. Let's say I'm at home and I'm going to get something from the top of a shelf. Or so I jump on the bench, and I'm standing on the bench and I'm reaching, and then I almost fall, right? I almost fall backwards, and I feel these sensations like, whew, and I'm like, whoo, I almost fell. Like the sensations come, and then the thought comes. That's a very heavy sensation. Something happens in the body, and then the mind builds on top of that. That is an example of sensations creating something in our mind. And that is like a key. That is something that we have all experienced. Let's say next time you almost fall off a bike, you're going to get very similar sensations leading to, whew, I almost fell, right? There is something to this body that is key, because the mind situation that ends up being our problem is just one part of this chain cycle, and we need to stop trying to understand this intellectually and actually understand our mind and body and how they are connected. But first, before we can do that, we must exhaust that. Just mentally thinking about it, reading about it, is not going to help us untangle this. So many of you need to kind of get into this trap to realize what I'm saying here. To actually be desperate, and that desperation is going to be the catalyst to trying something new. So, if you want to actually get real life experience on how a lot of this mental action is created and how we can reverse this wheel of reaction the correct way, not by reflecting, we need to get some real life experience that will show us how this chain of events connected to the body, connected to the mind, creates this loop. And fortunately, there is a way to learn this super smoothly. There's no magic, there's no mysticism involved. It is actually the most rational thing ever, right? We want to understand, why is this loop? Why is this loop of reaction creating suffering for me? We must actually use this scientific way of thinking into going to the root of it. We can't just be stuck up here. We need to understand how it is created. So there's this organization called Dhamma.org, DHAMMA.org, where you can sign up for a 10-day free meditation retreat, and they will teach you how to meditate. That is my big suggestion for you. But it's not all bad, right? You've probably spent your 10,000 hours thinking, which has turned into an asset if you can use it. You can think in systems now. You can untangle issues, right? You can see the simplicity in a complex system. That's a great tool to have. But we need to turn that inward and not outward. We can't use it to create castles with a flawed foundation. We must use it as we go to the root of the issue, which needs to be understood and untangled by experience. I hope this video was not too disappointing, because I didn't give you this intellectual truth that you might be looking for. But I encourage you to check out this description in the video below here. And just know that there are resources in most big cities around the world where you can go and learn how to meditate for free. It takes 10 days. And it is super valuable. And the smarter you are, the more assets you have that you can use to actually understand the world and how your suffering is created. And you will be able to grow vertically instead of just horizontally. So, this was a short little insight about being stuck in a loop of reaction and not jumping into reflection, but something more simple might actually be the answer. So yeah, see you later.